Some of the darkest, most unforgettable urban legends are born out of Hispanic folklore. These are stories that shouldn't be whispered alone at night. Hi, I'm Blair Bathory, and welcome to the SomethingScary podcast. Thank you so much for joining us as we descend into the darkness together. So, want to hear something scary? Tales of Terror from Hispanic Heritage Month. Some fears only come out at night, and this is one of them. Like in this experience submitted by Mitchie. I was never read or sung to when I was a child. No gentle songs to lull me into safety, no comforting stories to chase away the dark. Because of that, I had no knowledge of El Cuko. I never ran into him during my early years until recently. Now, I wish I had forgot him entirely. It was a normal Saturday like any other, though for me, normal had a different rhythm. I am an insomniac, so mornings feel like nights and nights feel like mornings. Around 4:50 a.m., I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone, earbuds in, trying to distract myself from the constant pressure behind my eyes. My body had been tense all day from school, from arguments, from the awkwardness of being 17 and perpetually on edge. Then, suddenly, everything started to feel off. My vision wavered like heat waves over asphalt, and I felt a subtle dizziness creeping in. I barely noticed it at first, thinking it was just fatigue, until a cold draft brushed against my shoulders. My fan and air conditioner were both off. Confused, I pulled the covers up around my neck without opening my eyes. Then came the pain, a sharp, stabbing sensation in my back. My eyes snapped open to see the nightlight outside my room had gone out. I froze. Nectophobia had always been a small whisper in my life, a fear I kept tucked under my rational mind. But now it was screaming at me, and I was powerless. The nightlight flickered back on. Relief should have followed, but instead came tapping on my shutter, slow, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. My body shook violently as the lights began to flash in irregular pulses. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone, lost in some invisible void. I pressed my eyes closed tightly, willing the dizziness to subside. Sleep, I thought, just sleep. Anything to escape this. But the tapping didn't stop, and then came the scratch. My heart raced as a sickening realization crept in. This wasn't just my imagination. Not long before this, I had fought with my younger sister. A moment of rage, a kick to her back, quickly followed by regret and excuses. "It's fine," she had said. But I didn't realize that when El Cuko only comes for misbehaving children, and by some twisted cosmic timing, I had summoned him myself. Everything grew black, not the darkness of night, but a void so complete it was almost tangible. I tried to move, but my body refused. Then I heard it, a slow shuffle across the floor toward my bed. I thought my eyes were closed, but somehow I could see. He emerged, El Cuko, a man-like figure, impossibly tall, emaciated as if starvation had sculpted his body over decades. His skin was a pale, chalky white, stretched tight over bones that jutted out in sharp relief. The most horrifying detail, though, was the skull atop his head, an eerie crown that seemed to pierce the darkness itself. He reached a skeletal finger toward my forehead. His voice, deep and rough, rumbled, "Open your eyes." I obeyed. The touch of his finger was icy, and then pain emerged, a searing, stabbing agony that seemed to slice through every nerve in my body simultaneously. I collapsed beneath it, convulsing as if someone had driven 1,000 knives through me. The sensation repeated over and over until I couldn't tell where my body ended and the pain began. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. I woke drenched in my sweat, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sunlight was beginning to seep through the shutter. I stumbled to sit up, noticing something that froze me in place, a small, shallow dent in the shutter that had not been there before. I reached for my phone, desperate for any anchor to reality. The voice returned, softer this time, still slow and commanding.
Take this as a warning.
I shook it off as best I could, reminding myself it was 5:15. I went about my morning trying to convince myself it had all been a hallucination. By 7, I went downstairs to find my mother yawning, freshly awake. I told her about the nightmare, expecting her to dismiss it like any other teenage fear. But she didn't. Her face shifted from neutral to alarmed, eyes widening. She surprised my name like I carried weight. "You encountered El Cuko?" she said. "A dangerous legend in our culture. He only comes for children who have misbehaved. Something you did must have triggered it." I hesitated, then told her about the fight with my sister. She sighed, her face stern. "Don't ever behave like that again," she said, and I nodded, still trembling. For a while, it seemed nothing else happened. Days passed. Life returned to a shallow normalcy. But the pain in my back never fully left. It started as a subtle ache, then sharp twangs when I moved too quickly. And finally, small bruises appeared, thin, pale lines that looked almost like scratches. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I had injured myself in my sleep. Maybe the stress and lack of sleep had caused it. But I couldn't shake the memory of El Cuco's finger, the cold, the pain. And sometimes, when I sat in my room at night, I could hear a faint tapping on my shutter, the same pattern. Then, one night, something more terrifying happened. I woke suddenly, disoriented, heart hammering, to see the shadow of a figure at the foot of my bed. I froze. My body refused to move. The shadow leaned down slowly and I heard it whisper my name. "Remember why I came." I never moved. I never screamed. When I looked at my back in the mirror the next morning, the bruises had formed into a distinct shape, an outline of a small hand pressed into my skin, as if marking me permanently. Not my sister's hand, not mine. El Cuco's. Now I sleep lightly, always with one eye open. I don't fight with my sister anymore. I don't let anger take over. I've learned that sometimes punishment doesn't come from people. It comes from legends. And sometimes those legends leave marks you can never wash off. Even now, years later, I still occasionally hear the tapping. I tell myself it's the wind. I tell myself it's all in my imagination. But every time I see the faint outline of that hand on my back in the mirror, I know the truth. El Cuco isn't done with me yet. The way the darkness is described here, I can almost feel it closing in on me. It makes you wonder what's really out there, waiting. Would you dare to look if you heard a tapping on your window? And here's a really quick update for you all on my personal life this week. I went to London a few weeks back and I went to this really cool bar that had all this witchy metaphysical stuff, and I got this new book about sigils. I don't know if you've ever researched anything about sigils, but it's something that I'm into right now. And if you knew about the birds and all of the weird synchronicities I've been having, I'm starting my own practice. So if you have any tips or tricks about altars or sigils, let me know. It's not always the people who hurt us that haunt our memories. It's the spaces themselves. Here's a chilling account from Navaja. They hammered the plywood down so tight it seemed less like a pool cover and more like skin. It was now swollen and warped from rain, scarred by cigarette burns, pretending nothing was underneath. My dad told me not to touch it. But every time I crossed the courtyard, I bent low, eyed in the nail holes, trying to imagine water trapped in the dark. People whispered a boy had drowned there. No one ever said much else. After the divorce, Dad moved in with my uncle, and custody became a calendar no one could keep straight. A week here, a week there. The apartment was never quiet. Pipes wheezing, couples fighting through the walls, a radio in Spanish blasting music too loud from the next door. I learned to live on the edges of other people's noise, always caught between lives. That's when I met her. She lived on the ground floor, 14, older than us. with hair she never brushed and a grin that made you feel she knew something you didn't. She liked scaring people. Her apartment smelled of bleach and orange soda, the sweetness covering something sharper. She told ghost stories with the poise of someone who rehearsed the gasp. One afternoon, she leaned close, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "The boy in the pool wasn't the only one who died here." She spoke like it was a neighborhood rumor. After the boy drowned, his father grew violent, drinking, hitting the mother and daughter. One night, the little girl was badly hurt in the shared bathroom. She didn't survive. The father snapped, killed the mother at the sink, and neighbors dragged him into the street until the police came. Some said prison, some said he just disappeared. But what she repeated most often was this: the dead children never left. "She walks the stairs," she said. "He sits in the heavy chair. They ask me for things." I laughed, trying to be brave. Other kids called her strange. At a sleepover, she'd bitten another girl's back, claiming the ghost told her to. She played Bloody Mary in the bathroom and whispered names to mirrors. Nothing ever happened when I watched, but she always made it seem like the mirrors listened. Sometimes, I'd catch her staring at the plywood square in the courtyard, lips moving like she was answering someone I couldn't hear. One night, I stayed too long in her apartment. The clock blinked late, and I sprinted up the concrete stairs, my sneakers slapping, lungs burning. I kicked open the door. My dad was waiting. His voice came low and sharp in Spanish. But I swore to him I came alone. I didn't bring a friend. Then he pointed to the hall. The corridor was empty. My chest caved in. My uncle emerged, and the two of them spoke in hushed Spanish about ghosts and how places keep their worst memories. Later, my dad laughed it off, but when I pressed, he admitted what he'd seen. Messy black hair, a mark on the lip, a tilt of shoulder that was unmistakable. He'd been serious. Something had shaken him small. After that, I avoided her, but she was good at finding me. She appeared on the landing with a plastic bag of candy, asking if I wanted to play games where the lights went out. I said no more than I meant. Months later, she moved away. An old woman took her apartment, and I carried her groceries upstairs, plastic bags heavy with plantains, rice, and cans stacked like bricks. She thanked me with candles, the same kind the girl had once given me, wrapped in crinkled paper. Then one morning she was gone, died in her sleep, they said. No one blamed anything except the room itself. My father talked about leaving, a fresh start, and we did. But the plywood stayed, the courtyard stayed, and some weight never loosens. Years later, I came back, unable to stop thinking about the square of wood. The building looked smaller, tired, like a memory trying to collapse on itself. Paint peeled from the balconies, windows sagged behind crooked blinds, and still, in the courtyard, the board waited. Weathered gray, nail holes staring like blind eyes. I stepped closer. The air was thicker there, pressing close with mildew, frying oil, and something older beneath. My ears picked up scraps of memory, a radio faintly playing, a song, a neighbor arguing over bills, the creak of the stairwell. It was like the building breathed in pieces of the past. Then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. A rhythm rising from beneath the plywood, patient as breath. The smell of bleach and orange soda twisted my stomach, a scent I hadn't noticed in years. I crouched, scratches cut across the wood, letters rubbed into the grain. Ya basta. Stop. The sound behind me made me flinch, a voice sharp and certain, the same Spanish I'd heard as a child. I turned, and my father stood in the courtyard, but younger, the way he had been the night I'd run home trembling. His eyes fixed on me with the same anger that softened into something like regret. He lifted his hand and pointed.
She's still behind you,
he said. My chest hollowed. I turned, expecting the ground floor girl. But what I saw was worse. Faint outlines shifting where the pool had been, small hands drumming against the underside of the wood, a woman at a sink frozen mid-motion, a man's body dragged faceless through the dark. A tapping quickened, desperate now. My father's voice wavered.
These places, they keep what happens to them.
I stumbled back, but the sound followed, synced to my pulse. Tap, tap, tap. like something knocking on the underside of my own skin. And now, at night, when the apartment walls settle and I'm alone, I hear it again, the steady knock of the plywood, asking not to be forgotten. Whoa, I'm so sorry you had to grow up around all that violence. The whispers, the shadows your dad couldn't even explain. It's terrifying to think the past can linger like that in a place long after everyone has moved on. Here's the real question. Do haunted places trap the people who once lived there, or do they trap the people who come back to remember? It's time for something from one of our listeners, and this week, I wanted to share an email we received. It's an update from our wonderful fangirl listener and contributor, Wendy. 2 weeks ago, during our Friday the 13th episode, we shared her chilling story about working the night shift at the dog boarding facility. If you haven't heard it yet, pause right here and go listen first. Trust me, it's worth it. Wendy just reached out with an update, and here's the part that makes my skin crawl. She actually kept working there. She did admit, though, she switched to the first day shift she could grab. Smart move, girl. You're way braver than I'd ever be. But still, just imagine walking back into that building after what you saw. Now, I've got to ask, what about you? If you felt that atmosphere, if you heard those sounds in the dark and saw what she saw, would you ever step foot in there again? Or would you be gone for good? Drop your answer in the comments and let me know. Anyone ever had a terrifying encounter involving your animals and something supernatural? We love hearing your stories, so send us an email at somethingscary@snarled.com, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube @snarled so you never miss an episode creeping your way. And trust me, you won't want to miss a thing, particularly as we gear up for the spooky season. Not every smile you recognize belongs to someone you know. The nightmare began in a quiet Colombian suburb on the edge of the forest. Mariana, 17, walks home from school, earbuds in, scrolling through the latest true crime forum. That's where the first whisper of La Tuda reaches her, not from her abuela's tales, but from an internet post claiming the witch still prowls the forest, stealing faces and leaving wax dolls in their place. She scoffs at the idea. People always say that. Still, it sticks, because in the forum's comments, someone insists the stories aren't old folklore. They're recent, modern victims, recent disappearances. Mariana enters the trees behind the soccer field. The forest is humid, alive, the leaves slick under her sneakers. She hears her name, faint, almost sweet, almost pleading. It doesn't make sense. No one should know she's there. She follows. It's easy to follow something you trust. Easy to convince yourself the shadows are safe when they mimic the people you love. That's how La Tuda works. She copies, she lures, she convinces. The first sign should have been the smell. Something like wet wax or melted chocolate, like someone's cooking, only wrong. Wrong because it clings to her hair and makes her stomach curl. She turns a corner and sees her best friend, Sophia, sitting on a fallen log. She waves. Smiles, mouthful of words Mariana can't hear over the pulsing of her own heartbeat. She runs forward, laughing. "Sophie!" But the laugh is off, slow, drawn. Her friend's eyes glimmer like candlelight in water. That's when Mariana notices the hands. Too smooth, too pale, too perfect. Fingernails without a scratch. The way the body doesn't move quite right. It's wax. And behind the log, the real Sophia cries, eyes wide, pinned under roots that twist like living things, her mouth forming silent pleas. Mariana doesn't see at first. Her mind, wanting to trust, chooses the easy truth, that this is real. It's La Tuda. She knows because she feels it in her chest, a sick pulse of recognition. The stories on the forums didn't mention the look in the eyes of the replaced, the deep, hungry calculation behind the glossy wax. The La Tuda is patient. She studies you before she takes you, and she has taken children, men, anyone foolish enough to answer the call of familiarity in the dark. Mariana freezes. The wax Sophia tilts her head, and her lips move, forming a question. Come with me. And Mariana, stupid and human, takes a step. The forest shifts, branches coil, and twist as if they were alive, forming walls. The past she thought she knew disappears, leaving only a tunnel of green, breathing wood. Behind her, a small shriek cuts through the damp air. She doesn't look back. There's a clearing. The light is soft here, but unnatural, honey gold and thick. And there, standing, is her mother. Or someone with her mother's hair, her laugh, her smile. She holds her hand out, beckoning Mariana forward. Another wax figure waiting in the shadows. That's when Latuda whispers in her mind, the words curling around her thoughts like smoke. Trust me, I'm her. I'm what you need. Don't turn back. Mariana wants to scream, wants to fight, but it's a different kind of fear. The one that roots you to the spot, makes your brain betray you, makes your hands reach towards the wrong face. The real Mariana, the one that should have turned, already exists in a hollow elsewhere, trapped in the roots of the forest, struggling against a silent force. Her own voice echoes, a whisper she can't quite reach. When she steps closer, the wax figure smiles wider. Her skin feels impossibly warm under Mariana's fingers, and then it moves. Real hair, real eyes, real blood, except it's her mother. The mouth opens and it's wrong. A soft tearing sound, a mimic voice that's not hers. Somewhere, a branch snaps. Somewhere, a small voice calls for help. But the forest isn't a place that listens anymore. Not here, not now. People will look for her. They always do. They'll find the wax figure, maybe, and marvel at the craftsmanship, leave it on the porch like a grotesque doll. And the real Mariana, or Sophia, or the man who vanished last Tuesday, will be elsewhere, in a twisted version of the world, learning that no one is coming. And if you want to understand Latuda, the forums will tell you, she doesn't just steal bodies, she steals certainty, she steals love. She replaces it with something that moves, something familiar, something wrong, something you trust until it's too late. By the time the police arrive, if they arrive, the story is always the same. A person is missing, the family insists they disappeared into the forest. Maybe there's a wax figure left behind. Sometimes a message, carved into a tree or written on a leaf. Don't trust the shadows. And the investigators trained in real crime shake their heads. Folklore, old wives' tales. But the families know. There's a look in the eyes of the wax figure that never lies. And somewhere, beyond the edge of reason, the real person calls out, hoping the world remembers they were ever alive. Mariana's parents find the wax figure sitting at the kitchen table the next morning, eating cereal with impossible delicacy. They laugh. She seems normal. But the eyes, those eyes, they follow you. And when they look away, it's only because something deeper is watching, something patient. In the forums, they'll pick up a story in hours, new posts, new warnings, the echo of a myth living in real time. But Latuda doesn't belong in the past. She belongs to now. And she waits, always, just beyond the familiar, just out of reach. It's terrifying to think that the people closest to you might not be who they seem. If someone you love came home looking normal, but something in your gut told you they weren't real, would you still let them in? If you know someone else who loves horror as much as you do, share our podcast and help spread the word and all of the scares. And also, don't forget to rate, comment, and review, and let us know what you think. Follow us wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Don't miss a single episode here on Spotify or on Snarled YouTube channel. And you can send us your own spooky encounters or untold true crime stories at SomethingScary@snarled.com. I love reading your emails. This week's podcast stories were edited by Sarah Lukasiewicz, narration by Blair Bathory, produced, edited, and mixed by Fitz Harris, executive produced by Gail Gilman.
Music by Sapphire Sandalo and Calvin Linderman.